Hello everybody, I am Dangerlander1K here on twitch.tv. Um, this video is a continuation of my attempt to progress through a campaign, first with Holly, Nightmare campaign. At the end of the video, I'll try to, put together some thoughts and some observations from the session. Anything to either confirm things that I know or sort of review new observations that I've made. And certainly there'll be some kind of summary in the description of the video, including the link back to my Twitch channel for anybody who wants to help out, support, catch the live streams. So there are a couple of things that I want to talk about. One, I would say after the last 4 days, it's been about 5 hours a day, give or take, right? So about 20 hours of just concerted like nightmare difficulty stuff. And the first takeaway, I think, for many people who bother to give it a try is that it is a lot of failure. Like, it's a lot of failure. It's a lot of crazy shit. And on top of that, there are bugs. There are legit design upsets, right? The director has gone rogue. It's spawning. It's like multiplicatively. I don't even know. It's spawning specials according to cards that it's playing, and it becomes overwhelming, admittedly by Turtle Rock, to an unfair degree. So for many of you people who use that alone as an excuse to not even bother playing the game, yeah, I can't fault you guys. And frankly, I think that makes a whole lot of sense. Like, how are you going to play a game that is as challenging as it is with a bug that is knowingly creating an unfair set of circumstances? So, for all of you guys who or like moving on and playing something less stressful and more reasonable, I mean, I think that's appropriate. For folks like me who are like dealing within a community and have this sort of like cycle of production and responses and comments and everything like that, it's a little trickier to just like step out of the game because you want to be there when things change. And I do not feel like incentivized to break my heart and my soul over this whole process. I get pretty much 100% of any energy to deal with this nonsense from folks who are interested enough to try to solve these problems. The one aspect that I guess makes me a glutton for punishment, and I would imagine a lot of other people, is this wild idea that we could just figure it out. Like, that's it. Whoever likes difficult logic puzzles or riddles or or who likes standing up to situations that kind of act like bullies, anybody who looks at a challenge and goes, fuck that challenge, I'm not gonna bitch out here, people who won't quit in spite of themselves, right? I kind of like fall into that camp. I'm old enough to have stepped away, but I do really appreciate that there's an entire community of people that are like giving it hell. It doesn't matter what difficulty you play on. It doesn't matter, it's just like you lose and then you get the energy the next day and you keep at it. So I'm kind of like in solidarity with that kind of struggle and that mindset. Whether you're doing things right, doing things wrong, learning at your own pace, making mistakes all over again, playing just for fun, or actively trying to progress in the mission, it doesn't matter. This game is punishing, and people who I think withstand that, you're crazy. But also, I think I get a little bit of that. I've certainly had a lot of it in other areas of my life, and I've tried to temper it with some sanity. But this is one of those situations. It's like really challenging. So this game definitely is a people who can't help themselves but step into these insane, uncompromising situations with this idea that they might be able to figure out a hook. They might be able to figure out a workaround. They might be able to figure out the thing that's going to tip the balance. And I think that's attractive because there are a lot of situations in life that feel just as uncompromising, and you don't want to be a victim. you know. I mean, I think it relates to that. I think it directly presses a very specific button for some of us, you know. But that's just a little bit about how I feel about the psychology of the situation. The game related stuff that I'm sort of have been thinking about since I finished playing last night, and then I played like a couple of rounds in veteran because I was trying to test out like a conceptual approach to how I melee. See, the way that I melee when I play as Holly, the way that I melee right now is I just kind of like rely on these sort of tested notions of like bottlenecking enemies and meleeing them and whatnot. But I always did it according to the location and not based upon where my people were at. I mean, it's very difficult to chase people around, but like really who you're trying to save is your team. So sometimes, yeah, you're at the door, but sometimes what you're doing is just trying to stop the team from getting surrounded. And I felt like I was becoming a little bit inflexible in where I put my focus as melee, right? The other thing is I had to realize that I had shortcomings. My deck can only do one thing at a time. So the first half of my deck, which I will eventually sort of go into in depth, but the first half of my deck, I'm trying to aim it at dealing with the horde effectively and self-heal effectively. And then the latter chunk of my deck is going to be about dealing with mutations. So the first chunk of my deck, I'm avoiding confronting mutations mano a mano. And then the second half of my deck, I'm trying to like overcome that. Because I know for a fact that I can very quickly get into a position where I'm very effective against the horde and then help heal myself and help heal my party. But I can't, you know, and then all I have to do is just get better at doing that technique-wise, you know, once I have the cards in play. But if I front load cards to deal with the mutations and then I don't specialize in killing the horde, that creates that means that the team might be vulnerable to the horde. I mean, you got to pick your poison, you know. And I think that the combined fire of a team that is not as stressed out by being overwhelmed by zombies is probably going to be able to focus the mutations down easier. But I don't know. I'm still working on it. The point that I'm trying to say is that it really comes down to, are you trying to be more effective at dealing with mutations up front? Are you trying to be more effective at dealing with the horde up front? As a melee, you know you have, as Holly specifically, you have improved damage resistance. You know you're going to get your stamina back quicker than others to deal with a mix of like running and shoving. And that means that you're going to be up front. And you really got to think about like, what's your approach, right? So I don't want to just be instinctive. I get in and just bash shit. I need to think about how I'm doing that job. And I spent some time outside of this recording and definitely in between matches, like looking at my deck and thinking about what happens one step at a time. So yeah, my first point was that it's a game for problem solvers. My second point is that I'm thinking about how I play my position and how I stack cards to do one job and then the next job once that one job is taken care of. The second point I was thinking about was how panicking. So panicking happens when the game floods me with horde and mutations from two directions. A lot of the time is due to a mistake from one of the party members. Somebody spawns a horde and it pulls everything on the map, including other things that hadn't yet come into the map. That's a problem. And it's also a problem that the director has no problem spawning very dangerous units behind you. So the minute that shit goes down, you want to run and you run right into a problem. I was thinking about how the big issue in most cases is, like for me as a melee, it's when I'm in between specific threats. It's like any kind of tall boy crusher or a bruiser on one side, or blighted, volatile, or flaming ridden, and exploders, and I guess reekers to a certain extent, because they can compound the issue by summoning another horde when they blow up. Not being able to stun them and get past them, and then panicking. But if I were to slow things down a little bit, I realized that in those situations, in a hallway, let's say, where shit's coming from both directions, one side is perhaps more, hopefully, ideally, one side is more manageable than the other. Like, if it's a wretch, I think I can stun that and get past that, or even stun it and blow it up and survive that. If it's just zombies, if it's like if it's like the volatiles with the exploding heads, I can hit them at the knees and just work my way. I obviously can't protect my back and I need to get through them, but you know, if I'm aiming for the head, then I'm getting through them, right? That's the idea. So sometimes I think I panic and I just start shoving to get through, letting hits get all around me, when really I need to strike true and more moderately work my way. I know shit's behind me, but I need to not panic, because if there's a shot in hell that I can create an escape route for my team, I need to be like the calm at the eye of the storm, you know? And I'm not saying that this is gonna like revolutionize my gameplay. I'm just saying that sometimes, like in retrospect, I'm thinking about different situations and I'm realizing that there probably were opportunities I missed simply because I let what was happening on screen cloud my judgment. So it takes a while, but you got to train yourself not to panic. Unfortunately, the only way you can do that is to put yourself into mess after mess after mess after mess, get overwhelmed until you get numb to it, and then make sure you rest in between gaming sessions, play other stuff, think about this game, kind of like ponder it, and let certain realizations come to the surface. We'll see. Today's games, I'm going to go through a number of games and we'll see how we feel. The other thing is, and also, you know, running in general might seem like a good strategy, but for when you're surrounded, obviously, if you just take off and if you don't plot an escape or position you're going to run to, and you don't plot an attack route in that direction, then you're just going to run into death, right? Like, death is going to happen no matter what. So the fact that you try to take control of that and do it on your terms is probably better over the long, over the bigger averages of those encounters. So my fourth point is to embrace mistakes. This is like the suckiest tip, but like, I'm always going into a match thinking I want to run a perfect game. Like, I want to separate the mutations, and I don't want to alert the hordes, and I hope that my team does the same thing. But that expectation gets defeated all the time, and I think it adds a level of disenchantment and pain when it fails. Like, I'm sucking my teeth and being all exasperated and shit like that, when in reality, you know, human beings are imperfect. I'm not inviting people to fuck up. It's more just like, we're human. Like, and considering the amount of mistakes that I made, you see them sometimes if you're watching my my other gameplay vids. You know, I'll be like, what did that guy do? What did this guy do? And then, look at what I did, you know? And I think that, you know, human beings are colorful experiences. I wish that the AI made more mistakes, you know, that we could exploit. And sometimes it does. Sometimes there's a bug that we could take advantage of. But I'm not really being fair to the human condition by asking for perfection. Like, we just aren't. Like, nobody is. And I think we keep trying to like match the execution of the game, which is certainly about, you know, practice and mastery, but I feel like it's dumbing down what probably makes us brilliant, in that the mistakes give us an opportunity to radically adapt and rise to the occasion, but only if we let go of the idea of perfection. We have to let go of it, right? So what that leads to then is this idea about flexibility, you know, and using all options on the table for creative ends. Every time that I will watch somebody who's particularly slippery and hyper aware, operating at actions per level second that I can, and I'm talking about, like, sometimes I'll be dead, I'll be watching somebody, or I'll be watching a stream where somebody's moving very fast and taking out a lot of things, and they're alone, and they're able to shoot and dodge the tall boy and get away from this shit, and, you know, like the the reekers and the exploders, they charge you, right? But there's a wind up to that. You could tell they start to glow and then they start going and they dodge that. They know how to deal with things and they have memorized the locations of sleepers. They already know what to look for. And when I'm watching this, I'm thinking, what mentality does that person's probably not even thinking. Think of like, if for those of you who played Halo back in the day, like when it first came out, think about just going into the library, right? Where the flood surrounded you and you were just on autopilot. I'm older now, so I don't operate like that. I prefer to like know what's going on. I can't, it's not just all instincts for me, but so I'm not going to be as fast as those people. But at the same point, I think there's a different quality which just has to do with being open to opportunity, and also then training yourself as to what works and doesn't, and then trying to log that. So for melee specifically, every time like you have a weapon, you have a melee weapon, right? But we don't think about the environment as a shield. You know, like if you're a knight, you have a sword and a shield. If I have what's my shield? My shield is basically anything I post up against. Anything I post up against where they have to get around. Sometimes my shield is underneath me. Sometimes it's next to me. Sometimes, you know, it's behind me. You know what I'm saying? I mean, basically, as long as there's a part of me that's touching something, or as long as I'm elevated, I have some sort of deterrent from most targets that have to close in. And I don't always think like that. Sometimes I'm out in the open fighting without one. But despite the width of the bat swing, the truth is, like, one thing I can't deal with is peripheral damage. The Ridden do hit much harder in Nightmare. So even if I'm taking down 3, 4, 5 targets and the whole crowd of them is being stunned, 1 or 2 hits from the side in the middle of that can be what just shreds my health. The only way that I can stop that from happening is by closing the cone of incoming damage, and then I can protect myself much better. Melee is still very viable as long as you're working your angles and you're constantly using the environment to give you the shield that you're missing from your actual, from your actual setup. Okay, use the environment as a shield. Always do that. And that's a note to everybody else on the team. If you're rallying to survive a horde, use your melee as your shield. Your gun is your weapon, your offense, but use your melee to cover one flank of you. A lot of the times I'll see, an oncoming rush of enemies and people go real crazy. Like they just start running around doing all this, exposing everything, running from everything, all kinds of crazy, and they don't form up. And I think forming up won't always work, but there are definitely times, many times where it does. And I don't understand why they do this. Why would a gym or a doc run out into the enemy to engage them, then quickly get surrounded, then find themselves huddling and then dying? That happens so often. And your melee is right there. You don't, like... So that's probably due to like them not working together regularly as a team. They're not playing as different classes. They're not understanding different roles. It's going to take a lot of time for people to play as different roles and start to understand the value. And they're going to keep making a lot of the same mistakes, and it's going to be frustrating a lot of people. But so I'll just restate that there, right? If you're the melee, you're using the environment as your shield, and if you're anybody else, you can use the melee as your shield. The melee can certainly prioritize running to gym, range DPS, or running to doc, the support, to help them. But once they're there, they're looking for a way to like constrain the enemy's lines of approach. So if you are doc or gym, walker, or just anybody that the melee happens to be around, try to... It's not always going to work. They might fuck up and die anyways, but try to acknowledge what they're doing and get into a position where you're covering a different firing lane, maybe their flank or the other direction, okay? And then the other thing as melee is that you're going to have to learn how to deal with mutations. Actually, everyone is. So this doesn't just apply to melee. I think there's like a pecking order of things. I think the first thing is... The first thing is gas cans. There's a couple of explosives around here, but gas cans and fuel tanks are the two like like things that you can throw. Oh, well, actually, I should slow that down even. Explosives, right? Explosives are your first line of defense when you're alone dealing with the threat. Hopefully, you can focus fire and not use your explosives, but you're saving your explosives if it comes down to you. Okay, if it comes down to you and there's one tall boy chasing you and you realize he keeps getting in range and he keeps juking you, and no matter how far you get around, he keeps, you just, you're shooting him, it's nightmare, so he takes a lot. That's when you have to have a grenade on hand. If you don't have a grenade, then you're looking in the environment for gas cans or fuel tanks. And if you don't find any of that, you're looking for red cans or cars to explode. How long? This is like super not reliable. That took 8 shells. So rather than hit a tall boy through several clips, you might be able to find a car and explode that car. If you could keep juking him around the car. I've never seen anybody use a car specifically offensively like that, but it's an option. And then lastly is ranged, because especially early on when you're trying to survive, range just doesn't, like, they will soak up so much damage. Some people will have certain cards that help them better, and that's great. But if you're melee, that's probably not what you're building into. So this is why range is like not going to help you. And the other problem with range is that because it takes such concentrated fire, you're not watching your flank, you don't have your bat up, you're not dealing with ridden that are trying to get at you. You can't always be aware of like disabling units that are coming by and how to line of sight them, or rushing units like an exploder and how to bait them like a bullfighter. You can't, if you're dueling that tall boy and you're really just focusing there, really you're kind of screwed, right? You have to probably, if a smaller, more nimble target appears, you have to line of sight it so you don't get disabled, right? And then if an exploder shows up, they probably will go down a little easier than the tall boy. So you want to like limit that, but there's also a timer, like more mutations will spawn. So you're kind of screwed. This is why I think your first thing is, let me find explosives, then range, and then lastly melee. If the tall boy is slow and he doesn't have the quick modifier, he drops his shoulder, you can get in there, get a hit in, and then hopefully run away. Or use your, obviously, your range to hit the weak spot. Which is why you may want to throw a weak spot card somewhere in your deck, which is what I'm gonna try to do. I'm gonna try to squeeze one in there. So overall, right? Just an opening spiel, because that's how I'm feeling, is for people who cannot help themselves but look at an uphill battle and think, maybe I can figure it out. This game really seems to speak to those masochists, because this game really doesn't give you a lot of options for that. But there are people who like XCOM, and people who like a Darkest Dungeon, and people who like, probably even less challenging games like Souls games and stuff like that. I played all of the above. Sometimes you see an impossible situation and you go, maybe it's actually possible and we just haven't figured it out yet. And that's a really great attitude that's probably wasted on video games, because then you don't always have that energy for stuff in real life that also seems impossible, like the economy or climate or racial division, like impossible situations to solve. But sometimes it's useful to exercise that muscle. Playing your position means really understanding what you could do that others can't. I can't snipe, what I'm saying? Not really, not effectively. I can help out, but I got to protect my gym or my walker, and likely they have to allow me to kind of like be a shield for the group. I have to protect my healer, and if my healer's in front of me, that really puts a lot of strain on me, because the healer should be behind us. They should be following. They shouldn't be leading. If anything, they could cover the rear, but they should be in the middle of the group. They shouldn't be at the rear or in the front. So that's an issue. Don't be the healer that's like in front of people. And don't panic, because you might, even if everybody dies, that's an opportunity for you to see what's going on, slow down in your brain, and then really think about it. And who knows, maybe there is an opportunity that you can realize even after the fact and then apply in the next situation. Edge of Tomorrow powers activate. And then don't look for perfect in your runs. Throw that shit in the trash. Human beings are not built that way. I'm not saying you shouldn't try to apply all of your lessons to have a safer run, but I think people are going to make mistakes, and people are going to create more chaos before they learn how to create solutions. So train yourself to embrace the chaos, to dance with it, to respond to it, and then take a break. Do it for as long as you can, and then take a break. Play something a little bit more agreeable. But yeah, I think maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay that people fuck up. Because we're all fuck ups until we evolve and transcend. And I think that's one of the key ways to get there. Is to fuck up until you get those gains. Embrace the resistance, and with that, right, embrace the flexibility needed. So as melee, see the entire environment as a shield. As non-melee, see your melee as a shield. And understand that every time you see a mutation, you're dueling it. Especially if you're the only one left alive, you're dueling it. And oftentimes, especially at Nightmare, the deck is stacked against you stat-wise. You're supposed to lose. But if you're gonna win, you're looking for opportunities to equalize, right? So explosives, cars, or environmental damage, I should say. So gas cans, things like that, cars, then range the melee. And the reason why I say it like that is just try to train yourself to think in that order very quickly. It'll get faster with time. I think if the first thing you do with an opportunity to duel a mutation is you immediately start sizing it up for that, when you know that that's going to take a lot of time and focus, it's going to make you vulnerable, instead of saying, let me toss my grenade, or let me look for something to blow this asshole up. Let me run away and, check the environment because I think I may have passed something by. The order with which you solve that problem could also be part of the problem, right? If you're just shooting it in the face and planting your feet, that's a problem, right? Maybe better to run to the car and then shoot the shit out of the car, which is why you might want to test your weapon against a car choice here in the range, since we have cars to test. We have 2 cars to test. So yeah, that's my opening rant. It took me about a half hour to say that, so I'll probably separate that from today's games, and my takeaway. And also, my apologies. I've noticed upon editing that my clarity and my diction, my clarity, my language, all that shit is foobar at the end of the sessions. Like, I'm listening to myself and I'm going, what are you saying? I'm not even referring to the enemies the right way. I have to cut a lot of it out because I'm just so tired. Yeah. So please forgive me if I'm, slurring and not pronunciating and making mistakes in my diction or whatever. I'm acknowledging this, and I'm realizing that it's just only so much punishment the brain can take before I just start to not give a shit. And I just need to relax and detox, have a drink, edit my video, go take a shit, just detox, and decompress from the whole experience. So, I mean, it's like that. And by the way, Turtle Rock, you guys designed a game that we need to know you guys are you actually like what you made. So when you do your dev streams and get all the questions, all that shit is great, and hopefully you're handling problems. I see you guys are responsive on Twitter. If anybody ever hears this, that's from Turtle Rock. it would be really nice to be in solidarity with your end of the experience. Know that you have people in your dev team that are decision makers that are playing this game the way that it seems. I think that the majority of people dip their toes into this game. They do matchmake, they do solo queues. A lot of them will not use mics. I don't criticize. I can't, because I don't use a mic, mainly because people are shitty. They have shitty attitudes, and they're not respectful. There are a lot of respectful people, but the non-respectful people ruin it. So it takes a while to develop friendship. I don't just want to play with randoms who may be disrespectful because they think it's cool as like their first way to deal with other human beings. And I don't want to be thinking about someone's insult or blocking someone or reporting someone when I'm just dealing with the game, right? So anybody who makes a multiplayer game has to think about this, has to realize that like the way that people make friends is very similar to the way we make friends back in the day. We meet them in person, we size them up, we take time to like, schmooze with them, develop some synergy. The shit is not instantaneous. Most folks are standoffish. If you're in a rural area, people make you nervous. If you're in the city, there's too many people around you and you just fucking whatever. And as for the socialite people, chances are they're annoying half of the crowd that they're around because other people are not socialized. So it's not that I don't like people, but I like them in phases and in steps. And in a stressful video game, that's probably not the best environment to just assume everybody's going to carry on respectfully. It just isn't. So the tools that you put in place, a robust and functioning ping system, a difficulty level that embraces, this sort of random, clandestine, coming together of people from different backgrounds and different strengths and weaknesses. Like that balance is very important. And I don't think that does not appear off the back that like that was a concern. The difficulty level in Evolve, for example, was agreeable and fun, frustrating, challenging at times, but there was part of a cadence, that I found ultimately fair in the last version of Evolve. I don't know how many of the professionals are on this team that are working on that, but I feel like right now there feels like there's a disconnect. It feels like this isn't something that logically someone would design for the sake of fun and entertainment. And if this is exactly what you guys intended, albeit obviously the bugs and the glitches and the exponential mutant specials, like all that bullshit, it's not included. But if more or less this is what you guys designed, this is exactly how you wanted it to be, we kind of want to see you play. I do challenge, Turtle Rock developers, employers, directors, and whatnot to spend 20, 30, 40, 50 hours in some observable format, review sessions, a match here, a match there, over like a week or like 2 weeks, or every once in a while, or a weekly stream or a bi-weekly stream or something like that, where you just play in random quick plays and we could come and watch you struggle and see the look on your face and how you're emotionally processing what you're experiencing to determine if this is a game that you would play for fun at the end of a long day. Okay? I just want to put that out there, and if anybody agrees with that and stayed to the end of the video and feels the same way, then fucking link this video at Total Rock so they can or just take the fucking question, hashtag fucking devs play Back for Blood, some shit like that. And that's it. It's fine if this is what you intended, but let's just see how we want to see like your process, your mindset as you deal with a lot of the same challenges that we're jumping through hoops trying to get through. That's what I would ask Turtle Rocks. I'm not trying to be an asshole or something like that. It's just there's a certain type of experience that is very unique and very trying, and it doesn't seem to be the instinctive approach of like 99% of the rest of the industry, which is fine. It makes it unique, but at the same time, the level of stress is definitely something that I question, right? So anyway, I'll leave it there. That was like, a big chunk of time there, and now we're gonna get into the matches. So we'll leave it there. Thank you for watching my content so far. Anybody who has been watching, and hopefully I will see you guys in chat. And appreciate the comments and the likes and the views. The support means everything when slogging it out with an experience like this. Okay, peace out.